What's up, guys and gals? Today we're going to work on a Penn Long Beach 60. Should to break it down, service it, and reassemble it with some tips and tricks along the way. Should be a pretty straightforward video. There's not a lot of stuff happening with this reel. We're going to start with taking the handle off and then undoing those screws on the outside bottom there, and then loosening these screws around the bridge. Gonna rock to pull the handle off. Whether you have the star drag, I'm gonna just back that up, going counterclockwise. Now we're gonna undo those 6 screws on the bottom to get this side off, and then do the same thing for the other side. Now I can tell you this happens all the time. We had this screw that was in here, which is going to be the wrong screw. This screw is right for the posts. But then on this side, right here, you have, if I can pull that out, a shorter screw. And that shorter screw should be right here, or right over here, to replace this longer one. So you'll notice the difference if I lay them next to each other. You can see that. This short screw is supposed to be towards the stand, just like this one is. And the longer one goes through the posts. So at this point I'm jumping to the left side, but I went ahead and separated these screws just in case these screws are different lengths, so that I don't mix them up. I'm going to do the stand last, and the reason being is I'm going to make a little note on it so that I know which side is the right side, which side is the left side. Sometimes what happens is these things have a tendency to kind of warp over time or set in a certain way, and I don't want to cross that up. So you'll get like a lot of work or a lot of pressure from fishing it, and this will kind of just bend in a certain way. But it doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means that it's, you know, like your walk. Your walk is a certain way because that's how you developed it. So at this point, taking this last one out, I'm going to make a note right here somewhere that just says L. And the L for me is the left side. I'll do it over here. Just like that. Now you can back out this bearing here just by unscrewing it going counterclockwise. You'll find the bearing and the spring under it. This plate comes off as well, and I'm going to show you a couple things that I would do on this. On this one I'm not going to do it because it's not a reel I'm going to service, so I'm just kind of walking you through the process versus showing you the actual steps. So for this, let me go ahead and pop this off so you can see that part. That does come off, as you can see. After you clean the side there off, I would use something like a wire brush, kind of like this. You can use the copper or the brass or the silver one. I'm not sure what that one was. Inside here to clean that out, and then add a layer of grease inside there to help protect it. I'm just going to stick it back on. For this, you can just use something like Corrosion X, and there's a lot of different places in the reel, like Corrosion X, to help break down the grease or dry down grease that's on there, and then use a paper towel like this or a Q-tip to help clean that out. For that metal part that you see the little spotting on, you can take your 4/0 steel wool and just do that. Now you can see, just like that, a little bit of effort, there's a huge difference between that section right there and that section. You can also use that steel wool for the stand, the spool, everything on the reel that's metal base. Even these posts. Just note that there's a lot of greening on these posts, so if you use that 4/0 steel wool, what will happen is you'll expose the copper underneath. Some people like to not have the copper exposed. Some people prefer not to have the greening on there. Once the green is on there, it just kind of keeps going and going and going until it gets destroyed, which takes a while, but it still happens. So for the right side, there's this. That's the sleeve that came out of here under the handle. Now I'm going to loosen this up. This is the eccentric lever. I'm going to pop that off first, like so. Pull it up. And now I'm going to loosen the screws for the bridge. to keep your hand over it, there's a spring in here that doesn't really go shooting anywhere, but just in case, we want to have some level of protection there to hold it. Oh, there it is. It's in my hand. That little spring right there. So you do want to be careful with that one. Now at this point you can just pull stuff out, right? Just kind of work things out to get them out. Doesn't matter how you do it, just pull them at an angle and they'll all come out. This side plate or this beauty ring as well does come out. We're not taking that out. I am pushing that eccentric out of there. And for the bearing, we're going to unscrew this going counterclockwise also. Just like that. All we have left to do now is just the gears. So I'm just going to use my fingers like this and just kind of pull up. We popped the under gear washer. That's fine. It looked like it was very brittle to begin with, so you would just replace that. So now all you have are these things. You have that top washer, which is, let's call it kind of like the tension washer. Then you have this stack right under it. You have that little kind of rubbery kind of washer. Keyed washer, another drag kind of washer, not the HT100s, but like a rubbery kind of washer, which you could replace. But if they still work, I wouldn't replace them. Then you have an eared washer, your final rubbery kind of washer, and then the keyed washer with that on top. Okay, so for the cleaning of the gears and all these other parts in there, you would use the same thing that I showed you earlier for the gunk and stuff inside these things, and also the same thing inside here as well. Corrosion X, you spray it around there. You can use WD-40 if you want. That's probably a little more accessible for you. And just let it soak. Let it soak for a little bit, and then you can use your Q-tips, your paper towels, a toothbrush, like this, and get that worked out of there. For this chrome on the handle, the same sort of deal I told you about for the beauty rings. You can brush that off with 4/0 steel wool, and it'll come out nice and pretty. For the drag washers, all you're simply going to do is just kind of wipe these down, and just be careful because they are kind of like a leathery, rubbery sort of thing that could disintegrate. And if that happens, then of course you need to replace them. I did go ahead and replace the under the main gear washer, which is this. This is a black one, plasticky. This was more of a leathery kind of one. Both of them work, but this I prefer because it's more durable. Okay, so the last thing, let's go ahead and pretend like we cleaned everything up like we should, and we're going to put it back together. First thing we're going to do is the main gear stack. So I'm putting on the under gear or under main gear washer. Now I'm going to stick on the main gear just like that. First washer going in is the drag washer, then our keyed washer, another drag washer. Our eared washer, you see, has two little tabs on the end of it. There's two little slots on the main gear that you have to put that into. Just make sure it recesses in there before you continue. Then your last drag washer and your final metal washer, which is keyed. Then you put this tension spring on there. You can put on upside down, right side up. My personal preference is right side up. I feel like it gives it a little bit more tension. I don't know, just me, I don't know. And I'll set that aside, because what we're going to work on now is the left side and putting this together. And all you're going to see me do is just kind of line these things up and screw them in. This is kind of a balancing act sometimes, but it's not too bad. Just try to find our shortest screws right there. I'm going to stick one through. Got to make sure it's lined up first. So to do that, I'm just going to stick my screwdriver inside there and just kind of move it like that to line things up. Yeah, that's in there. When you're putting this on, make sure it looks like this. I'm not tightening all the way down yet, because I want to get this other screw in as well. Now I want to make an assumption that you've seen some of my other videos in terms of like greasing things up, but just in case we do a quick run, you're going to do a light coat on all of these things. Just make sure you grease inside that channel right there where the yoke is going to go, and same thing for the main gear, this when you grease it up. Now for the post, we're going to simply kind of follow what we did with the stand. Stick a screw through and hold it like that and screw it together. And you don't need to snug these down yet, you just want to get them close. Light, a little loose hand tightening is good. That should suffice until you get everything put back together. You can also take it like this, press against the screw and run it with your finger. Alright, once those things are back in, we can take our spring, stick that back inside our bearing and screw that in. We're not going to go all the way down, we're going to go just to where that's kind of flush with the plate to leave a little room for play when we're putting the stuff back together. Alright, now so we don't forget, we're going to go ahead and put the bearing in on this side. Stick that in there and just screw it in. This one I'm going to go all the way down on. Gently snug that down. And before I forget, make sure when you're working this side that that clicker is all the way open and not down, because it'll hinder it or may hinder it when you're putting the spool back inside there. Now we're going to go ahead and get our eccentric put back together. Pretend you took it apart. It has a little hooked in on one side. See that? It's going to go inside the slot right here like this. I tend to take my grease, add a little tip to the, or add a little bit to the tip of it before I stick it in there, because I am greasing this entire eccentric as well and the tip of it. Now we're going to show you where that's supposed to set. This end of the spring. It's supposed to go between those two little cylinders right there. So first I'm going to take it, kind of have it in that position, gently push that through. Now I'm going to take my tweezers before I go too far down, kind of work this up into here like this. Then I'm going to bend that inside to make sure it fits. You can take your screwdriver and do that, like so. Push it down. Make sure you stick your screwdriver in that groove right there in the crease, so you can push it all the way down. Now I'm going to take my lever, kind of have it facing, looking like that, the wrong side out, slotting it over that eccentric. While you're pushing down on the back side of this, you're going to rotate it up to where you get it to balance. When you get it there, you're just going to flip this over, line that up like so, and then secure it with the screw. Once you're done with that, you're going to turn it over, make sure everything is set, and make sure that this functions properly, which it does. If it were clean, it would work a little bit better, but it does function the way it should. Backwards is engaged and forward would be free spool. So it's a little different than some of the other conventionals. Now we're going to go ahead and get this section set up. We're going to take our springs, put them into two little holes that you see right there. There's one on that side and one right here. Kind of like so. I'm going to take my pinion gear, my yoke, put them together looking like that. And I'm going to have this facing forward. Make sure you slot the pinion gear over this spring, the bearing on this side. Just have it kind of set like that. I'm going to go as open as I can with this, which would be that section right there. Now I'm going to take my my jack, have those two little prongs facing down, kind of line this up at an angle, fit it over the eccentric stack first, and then over that post right there. When you're putting these together, before you do that, you're going to add some grease around that post, and obviously there'd be some grease around this eccentric because we already greased it, as well as the yoke and the jack. Now you can keep it in this position and it should hold everything in place. And all you have to worry about now is the bridge with the main gear assembly and this dog here. So now for the main gear stack with the dog assembly, we're going to take this, stick this in first. Kind of just have it like that. And it's going to should just slop or drop right in, looking just like that. Shouldn't be too difficult. Now I'm going to take this, kind of open that up a little bit, because I want to see where I'm putting this. And the dog is going to look in relation to this, just like that. So I'm just going to drop it in. And now I'm going to work this dog down to kind of position things the way I want them. Take my fully threaded screw, stick that through, so that's in place. And now we can start turning this. Push down on the pinion stack, rotate until we get to about right there. So it's a little more than halfway. We're going to take our spring, put one end in going towards the brass piece of the dog, and then we're going to use our finger and just pop the other side in. And it should go right in looking just like that. I'm not shoot anywhere either, but I'm going to keep my finger over it just in case. Now I'm going to rotate this until I get that to kind of pop in place, which it just did. And I'm going to secure this one screw right here. Then I'm going to test that dog out to make sure it's still in the right place. I can hear and feel it, which means we're good. Now we can take our not fully threaded screw. They go on the top side here. Stick one through and then get that screwed in. And then just kind of follow that pattern. We're going to snug these down kind of with an X pattern. So that one, then this one. Don't over tighten them, but you want to snug them down. That one, and then that one. Now I'm going to take my spool, stick that in. Make sure that the point goes inside that slot for the bearing. Set that up like that. And now we're going to take this, line these two bottom ones up to the two bottom ones on the stand. Then everything can kind of just fall in place. You do want to make sure that when you put this together, that you rotate this slightly to get that spool to drop in place for the pinion gear. Now I'm just going to screw it in like I did for the other side, and then I'll show you the rest in a sec. One thing to note here is that sometimes when you're putting these back together, you may have to play with the posts, kind of rearrange them to get these screws to go inside properly. That's all. Just kind of move them up and down, back and forth until they get in the right position to match the two. Now when they're all in place, I'm going to go ahead and snug everything down. And again, I'm not over tightening these things. Just understand that they're going in through Bakelite, so you can crack this. So I'm doing it for the right side first, and I'm going to do it for the left side. Now all we have left to do is take this sleeve, put that in there, take our star drag. Don't cross thread this when you put this on. Just add a little bit of grease to the threads before you put yours on. Make sure it's getting put on there properly. Then you can kind of knock that down a little bit. If it stops going down on you, you can use the handle. Key it over that, over the sleeve on the bridge, and then just work it down. And your goal is to work this down until you have that little piece right there, the little brace or stop section exposed, so you can get the handle on without interfering with the star drag. And now that that's the case, we're going to go ahead and screw it together. Now while I do this, I will say thank you for watching. If you found the video useful, please hit that thumbs up button. If you appreciate content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel and spreading the word about it, because all I was doing was not essentially working on the reel, but just showing how it comes apart and how you could service it and put it back together. One thing here, you could, for this, that little dirt on the handle knob, you could take something like the magic eraser from Mr. Clean and scrub that, and that can usually take some of that debris or dirt and dust off of it. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.